All
Welcome
right,
back to
welcome everybody.
FreedoniaCon 2025. We're about to start our 1879 line developers talk with Brad Decker.
End of the line.
End of the line. All right, Brad, take it away.
No, state of the line.
Oh, state of the line. End of the line, state of the line. Same difference.
No,
No?
not the end of the line.
Train talk, isn't it?
End of the line means done.
Oh, you're not done.
So,
You're not
no,
done.
we're far from done. Well, though we're starting to come to an end, just moving on to the next one. So, I suppose I can use that to transition into things. So, where we are at right now with books in production, we are completing our story arc that's been occurring in the Grove. We're going to have 2 books coming out to finish everything off. First one is Creatures of the Grove, which I mentioned last night during the drink and draw. It's basically a large bestiary of all the really crazy critters and stuff that show up in the Grove. So all kinds of nasty, fun things to throw at your players, different resources, story arcs, and basically just all different kinds of things that could be occurring when that will help flesh out your adventures. The other one is Shifting Tides, which is a big adventure book, which is going to complete a lot of the story arcs. So far, we've been building up the military campaign of the British against the Samsut. Things started to take a turn for the Samsut at Bourne's Hill when the British decided to delve into biological warfare and introduced a modified strain of cholera to it snuck it into the water supply for the British. Or for the Samsut rather, that has gone awry and has created a very nasty, acidic, and sickly lake and is affecting some of the fauna. So that's going to influence some of the creatures that are in the book. And it's resulting in some not very positive relations with some of the Saurids. But it does mean that the fort that the Samsut had originally taken over fell because they were all very sick, and while they may not have been able to shoot down all of the undead controllers, and the sickness doesn't affect the undead themselves. If the controllers are sick, the undead aren't really going to be of much use because they're not receiving commands. So they were able to take over that fort and continue to push into the Samsut territory. As we talked about in the Samsut source book, the Samsut are very much still infighting over a lot of their culture. They basically all they've been doing for the past 1,000 years is fighting against each other. And so they are very much focused on trying to protect their individual city-states, which gets worse and worse the closer the British are getting to their territory. So we're going to get to see a big ramp up in the hostilities there, and then a very big disaster, which is going to set a few things back. Don't give spoilers, but it's going to very much reshape the landscape, we'll say. And it's good. It's going to the title of Shifting Tides is very appropriate. We'll put it at that. And once we get out of that story arc, we will be moving back through the portal to the Earth side, and we're going to be starting off with the Americas. So we will be doing the Union and Confederacy source books. I know there's a lot of people who are looking forward to seeing some of the storylines and things that we'll be delving into there. And that's going to set us off on another story arc, which will also end with something very big and disastrous, which again I won't spoil for the general public right now, but very very large and exciting, and a whole lot of things going on. That is the general plan at the moment. We are planning on some other books around the just all of Earth, exploring some of the other nations. Joel wanted to do an expanded British Isles book, so that's been on the list when we can get to it. We've talked about exploring some areas in like South America. I know we want to do an Egypt book, but I think we're going to try to wait until Earth Dawn is able to do their stuff with Koreana so we can have some ties in there. Uh, I've had a couple of people send me thoughts of things for Japan in that period, which has some interest to it, but I don't know when we'll be able to work it into the schedule and with the writing staff that will cover it. But on that subject of writing staff, if we have anybody who is interested in writing, we are always open for more writers. In particular, we're going to the Americas, where we could really use some Civil War enthusiasts because there's a lot of post-war and theorizing and changes of things from there. So, getting some people with some different perspectives on that could be very useful. And with that rant gone through, people have questions on anything I've touched on so far, and I touched on a lot, so feel free to chime in here.
So are there dinosaurs in the Americas?
Not in the Americas, but there are dinosaurs in the Grove.
Well, there's lots of bones of dinosaurs in the Americas.
Well, yes, but not living ones. Although somebody might try to transport them over from the Grove, so you could always turn an around that. I mean, we saw how well that worked out in the Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah. I was just about to say we should totally have a Victorian Jurassic Park game. Where they bring the dinosaurs over and they get loose in London. What do you think?
I have a couple of hadrosaurs in London Zoo in one of my games. Because, of course they want dinosaurs in the zoo.
I mean, who doesn't? I put a Sphinx in the Bronx Zoo.
I was about to say, you had a Sphinx in yours.
Zoos are fun.
But I think the Sphinx thinks of it less of a zoo and more just, oh, everybody's coming to fawn over me.
Yes, the Sphinx literally thinks that you guys are all there to worship it. It's a cat. What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they all seem to think.
I'm very interested in the Japanese source book. I was lucky enough to be able to go to Japan this past year and really enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, I don't know when we'll be able to get that into the production schedule. I haven't pushed anything, but I've had a couple of people reach out with some ideas, so it'll be interesting to see. And if you want to talk about weird stuff from spirits and creatures and stuff, holy cow, does Japan have some weird things?
Yeah, they have a lot of spiritual history, that's for sure.
Oh, and just weird critters.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't give any specifics because Andy's going to start sending us over to Japan and throw us weird crap.
I mean, I still could.
Yeah,
but right now,
it's not
I'm
like
really
you need an extra excuse.
I'm really thinking you guys need to chase dinosaurs through the streets of London.
So rather than panic on the streets of London, it's dinos on the streets of London.
So that's fine. The song still works. It doesn't go much into what's causing it.
The Victorian era had a lot of private zoos. It was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys get hired because said private zoos blank dinosaur has vamoosed. And before they get in trouble because their dinosaur ate people, they'd really like you to bring that back. See? You guys want to do that, right?
I'm not sure wrangling dinosaurs is really our skill set, but
it pays well.
If it's a raptor, you just put a top hat on it and people just think it's a saurid.
I would like to see you try that. If you do South...
I'm pretty sure they'd put a top hat on anything.
Well, they would if they could. The question is, can you? I don't see the raptor holding still. I was going to ask, if you go to South America, are you going to start delving into blood magic?
That is one that we'd like to talk about a little bit, and some rumblings of things starting to become active again. We're very much still in the low magic level, but it's rising. Uh, and that will tie in with the storyline that will occur when we go over to the Union Confederacy. We're going to start delving into more of that, particularly because we're looking at how things are taking place on Earth. Illusion magic should just for. I'm guessing that's for the top hat on the Raptor, because you could
Illusion
absolutely
magic
put
would
an
probably be
illusion
the
of a top
safest way
hat.
to do that.
You can restrain it with magic.
So I would think blood magic would be kind of a good tie over because you'd be using the blood to power the magic higher than what you would normally have thought you could do. So kind of like an in between stage.
And there will be certain things where there are more remote areas, and particularly because even in the cultures that practiced it, blood magic is a bit esoteric. So they'll kind of keep a lot of that under wraps. But yeah, they could absolutely be doing more things than is possible anywhere else in the world. Not to mention, then you get to talk about feather dragons.
I was going to say, you've already introduced dragons, and they're involved. Are we going to get to see cool, great dragons that are feathered?
I would like to. I don't think there's been a whole lot of feather dragons that were really touched on in Earth or mentioned. And I know there's been mentions of things like that occurred in Shadowrun, which we're not copying anything from Shadowrun. We're definitely taking unique spins on it, but nods to it. We can put those sort of things in.
If I'm still involved in writing, there's going to be feathered serpents and there's going to be blood magic because
I'm saying they definitely will be there. Just in what capacity?
Because they're both awesome.
Essentially speaking, the Earthdawn writer of Central and South America, feathered serpents, blood magic. Okay, I'm downstairs and a cat I don't know just peered through our back door.
Maybe it's lonely. Maybe it likes your cats.
We do seem to have a house that every cat in the neighborhood wants to move into.
So
we have a regular
or do the cats in the neighborhood just want to move into every house?
Oh yeah, but they go for ours, and we get all of them going for our house, and we have 2 cats already, so it must be something special.
If you're not just shooing them away, I suppose.
We do try to shoo away cats that aren't our own.
You get yourself a German Shepherd who likes kitties a lot. Who won't hurt the kitties, but the kitties will still run away. It fixes that.
You but solid, maybe a fifth of our downstairs space. We haven't got room for German Shepherd in this house.
Well, that's Sonny with his bunnies around here. I don't think he would ever.
Like bunny watching.
I don't think he would ever hurt one of the bunnies. I think he just wants to sniff it and lick it, probably.
That's all my German Shepherd wants to do with the kitties. He likes to pin it down and groom them. They just do not care for that at all. Speaking about
Sonny
your mascot,
hasn't gotten close enough.
Speaking about your mascot, is Sonny gonna get in the book? Has he been in a book yet?
He's not been in a book, although Jill did do the write-up for the Boulderosaurus and said that he based a lot of the personality off of Sonny.
It's entirely written up as a description. Yeah, the names have been changed and the creature has been changed, but it is essentially my first interaction written up.
How it happened last year at GenCon when he stayed at my house.
It's just been rewritten from the point of view of my regular correspondent and fictional voice, Jasmine Rochester, during her visits to the Samsut. As mentioned, as shown in the Samsut sourcebook, during that time, she had an encounter with a noble's pet, Boulderosaurus, which was essentially a overly friendly but very affectionate and pleasant in its own way.
Enthusiastic, I think, is the
Bouncing
best word.
ball of rock. Not that they're actually rock; they're more miniature rhinos. But given specifically, actually, the animatic that runs through the Samsut culture chapter, which is the bit where I have most of the writing of Jasmine, using Jasmine in that book, was actually the Boulderosaurus. I felt I had to. And it's very nice. It comes off very well, and they're noted as being quite protective of the people they attach themselves to, just in that manner that Sonny is with his buddies.
Pretty much. Oh, he will bark at raccoons when they come nearby because he doesn't want them near the bunnies.
Nope.
That's probably good for
But-
the bunnies, because raccoons will eat bunnies.
Bunnies exist, and raccoons exist, and raccoons eat everything.
Yeah, pretty much. But he is credited in the books as the emotional support officer for the line. And he generally joins in on when we have the writers' meetings.
Yep.
All right, well, since we were speaking of the Samsut and things of that nature within the storyline, I think this is a good moment to pull up the surprise that I had put together. Andy, if you want to pull up on mine, and then I can share the screen with the clip here. 1 second, let me get it to load.
If you'll put it up on your screen, I will make it big and it will show
Yeah,
on screen capture.
I'm getting the.
Yep. No.
Yeah, I was just getting the video pulled.
Yep. Watch stream. Make full screen. All right. We're all watching.
All right, so to set the information for this, this is the introduction that I've written for Shifting Tides, and I reached out to a friend of mine who had done a little bit of writing for us as well, and they did a read over of the introduction, and I put together just a little slideshow, just using the simple, quick AI clips. This is not representative of art going into the book. This was all just kind of storyboarding this. And I've added some ambient sounds, so it kind of gives you a little bit of a feel for how things would take place.
It's almost
so
like
here I will,
one of those, what are they calling it? Animated graphic novels? Where it's red
that sort
and
of
then
thing,
pictures,
yes. Yeah, kind of. It's not really animated. It's more just a storyboard, but it's a narrated storyboard. We'll call it that. But I will quiet out here, and I'll let the video go away and make sure that the sound's coming through here.
As the latest command meeting at Fort Island began to disperse, and the heads of the various branches of the British military forces began to settle in for brandy and cigars, one set of footsteps could be heard moving down the hallway, away from the meeting, in an orderly marching pattern. They headed toward the head office of the fort commander, stopping briefly outside and followed by a solid knock. Sir Ainsley Roke, seated behind his desk, glanced up from his musings over the latest inventory report and bid the visitor to enter. The heavy oak door creaked open, revealing the tall, precise figure of Admiral Mitchell Randall Zahn. The dim, oil-lit chamber, decorated with shelves of books and maps of Samsut territory, smelled faintly of ink and damp parchment. Sir Ainsley, dressed in his meticulously polished uniform, rose from behind his desk, extending a hand to his visitor. "Admiral Zahn," Roke greeted, his voice cordial but laced with an air of guarded curiosity. "You're punctual, as always. Thank you
taking the time. I suspect your tactical insights would be far more valuable at the field table than here in my cluttered den.
Zahn shook his hand briefly, his expression placid.
Fort Alice is no mere den, Sir Ainsley. It's the spine of our entire campaign, whether you choose to see it or not. If the logistics fail here, then even the sharpest blade in the field will dull to uselessness.
His words were measured, truthful, and tactical. The brigadier cared little for compliments for himself, but commentary on the orderliness of the fort and quality of his work he was known to welcome, and of course it never hurt any field commander to get on the good side of those holding the home base, especially one that might someday need to call in a favor for expedited airship repairs. Roke gestured toward the worn armchair across from his desk.
Take a seat then, and enlighten me. You've just come from the command meeting. I'd wager your insights are sharper than the rest of those braying hounds.
Zahn sat, smoothing his pristine coat. He adjusted his gloves, his face unreadable.
I suspect you aren't seeking a summary of the meeting. You've already had it whispered to you by half the room. You want my unfiltered opinion.
Precisely, Roke replied, pouring them each a glass of brandy. He handed one to Zahn, who accepted, though only out of courtesy.
This war, truth be told, has been an abstraction to me. I keep this fort running, I ensure supply lines stay open, and I leave the rest to the commanders in the field. But as we edge closer to the Samsat heartlands, I can't help but wonder how it'll all unravel. And unravel, I fear it might.
Zahn leaned forward, stapling his fingers.
It is unraveling, Sir Ainsley, though not in the way most think. Since the retaking of Bourne's Hill, the Samsat appear fractured, more so the further we push. Each city-state clings to its own interests, their armies unwilling to fully commit to the greater cause. It's made our advances far easier than anyone expected. And yet you don't look pleased, Roke observed,
swirling the amber liquid in his glass.
Because ease can be deceptive, Zahn replied coolly. The closer we get to their core territories, the more I see the fault lines beginning to close. The Samsat are a proud people, and while their city-states feud over ancient grudges, the threat of their homeland falling entirely may yet unify them. If,
he raised a gloved finger for emphasis,
they do unify. They will have measures. They will throw everything they have at us.
Roke frowned, settling back into his chair.
And if they don't, then the war will be ours,
Zahn said, his tone as even as if he were discussing the weather.
But winning is the least complicated part. What follows victory is what concerns me more.
Roke raised an eyebrow.
I assumed you'd relish the idea of finally claiming a Samsat city. Isn't that the brass ring we've been reaching for since this campaign began?
Zahn allowed himself a thin, almost imperceptible smile.
Claiming a city is one thing. Holding it is quite another. The Samsat populace will not welcome us as liberators, no matter how fractured their leaders are. Their allegiance to their city-states and their code of the balance runs deeper than anything we are accustomed to. If we take one of their cities by force, we must tread carefully. Ruling with an iron fist will only breed rebellion, even among those who despise their state of affairs. On the other hand, if we glove that fist in velvet, present ourselves as capable stewards, fair and just, some may come to see life under British rule as preferable to fighting for an immortal ruling class over feuds their grandfathers are too young to remember.
Roke chuckled humorlessly.
You're suggesting we win their hearts, then? That's a tall order, Admiral, considering how vastly different we are. I don't foresee the Anglican Church approving the Empire allowing a people that uses the dead as tools to carry on as they are. War and our differences make us enemies, yes,
Zahn admitted.
But war also offers the opportunity to reshape perceptions. If we govern our first Samsat city with a gentle touch, offer its people stability and prosperity, we plant the seed of doubt in the minds of their allies. Doubt in their own leadership. doubt in their cause and their code. If the Semsut repel us, and they very well might, we'll still need that seed to grow. It's the only way we endure a prolonged campaign without exhausting ourselves. Roke sighed, rubbing his temples. You make it sound as though the conquest of a single city is more dangerous than the entire war. In a sense, it is, Zahn replied, his gaze steady. The first city will set the precedent. It will either cement our dominance or galvanize the Semsut to crush us with a unity they haven't yet shown. We must present a tactically flawless front. No cracks, no vulnerabilities. He paused a moment, and finally took a sip of his brandy, giving an approving nod before continuing. That also means contending with the Sordid. They remain quite unhappy with us over the methods used at Bourne's Hill, and continue to harass our supply lines. That threat must not be allowed to grow, nor be visible to the Semsut. If we falter in our advance, or if we govern poorly, we give them their rallying cry. And mark my words, Sir Ainsley, the united Semsut force in their homeland is not something we want to face. For a moment, silence hung in the room, broken only by the distant hum of activity outside the fort walls. Roke stared at the maps spread across his desk, the marked Semsut cities seeming to glare back at him. You truly believe they could unite, after all we've seen of their petty infighting? Roke finally asked. Zahn stood, his expression still calm, but his voice carrying a faint edge of warning. I believe desperation can forge alliances that reason cannot, and if the Semsut leaders cannot unite, their people may do so in their stead. That's why we must plan for every eventuality. Wars are not won on the battlefield alone, Sir Ainsley. They are won or lost in the hearts of those who survive them. Roke watched as Zahn turned to leave, his coat swishing softly against the wood floor. Admiral, he called after him. Are you always this pessimistic? Zahn paused in the doorway, glancing back with a faint smirk. Not pessimistic, Sir Ainsley. Prepared. And with that, he was gone, leaving Roke to stare at the maps, the weight of Zahn's words pressing down like the still air before a storm.
All right, and that is the presentation. Let me stop the stream for my video there. So I hope people enjoyed that.
I did. That was very good.
I thought it was great.
I'm considering trying to get people to join in so we can do more stuff like that. Be able to put some other videos. I know there's some different introductions and things we've had for the books. I did some other just simple blog posts before with some fictional writing. I'd like to do some of those. I think that might be something cool that we could add in just as we're able to.
I love that idea.
I both sort of love and terrified of the idea of some of my writing having that done to it.
Well, you hadn't seen that. The only person here I'd showed that to was Andy.
And I loved it.
There's another bit in Shifting Tides that I've written as one of the introduction to one of the chapters that I'd love to see done like that, but we'd need to find someone who can impersonate Michael Caine appropriately.
Yeah, right. But no, I did see that one when I was going through doing the editing. So that was actually, I was reading this, and then I thought that, and then I saw my intro, and I go, we could do this. And absolutely put together clips like that.
How'd you get the AI art to have the same guy in different positions? Or at least mostly the same guy.
Very carefully and with great skill. there are tricks to be able to upload pictures for character reference, and I went through, give the descriptions and got one that I liked sufficiently to use as the base character, and then every time I gave the description of that character, I would use that as the character reference.
It was very,
I
very
did,
cool.
however, have to edit those pictures very heavily because it would keep throwing a bunch of artifacts of things. So just about every single one of those, I had to modify to get it to fit, so that it looked at least somewhat unified.
Well, you did a really good job.
Thank you. But I got fun looking at the as well. I like just all the background noise.
Mm-hmm.
Because that I think makes it pop.
I kept thinking the door squeaking was one of my cats.
I did enjoy that part. The extra sounds.
Yeah, the door squeaking, the footsteps. I had the one random spot where I put gunshots in. Just because it's a military fort. There's going to be shooting occurring somewhere.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I tried to, look at the door or something, but they were just very nonchalant about that.
I think Andy could probably attest to her house. There's probably shooting going on somewhere most time.
More often than most people would think. Occasionally I have to get on to people about things like it's very, very late, mayhaps, or super early. Perhaps we do not fire guns off until people are up or once they're asleep. There was the 500 Smith & Wesson, and it woke Fraser up. Fraser was mad. It was pretty funny. I don't think she was as mad about the gunfire as it was that she got woke up, and then she was cranky because she's a baby.
But yeah, to mention for the stream, Andy said there were some issues getting the video to pull up for some reason. I will have the actual video that you can watch on the channel after the stream and everything goes out. I have a few things I want to add to it, just for like captions and credits and that sort of thing. But that will be posted before the end of the con.
So what's really important though is where are the dinosaurs? I didn't see one dinosaur
in the grove.
Oh, they're talking about the grove.
They're not in the fort.
Why not? Gotta fight dinosaurs with dinosaurs.
And they're not in the grove, and they're not inside of Sir Ainsley's office.
There's some in the stables.
See? Gotta fight dinosaurs with dinosaurs.
That's not his office.
All right,
honestly,
Joel.
You would have
I
to
need you to write a scene.
The dinosaurs.
With the dinosaurs. And then we'll make him do that one.
Honestly, you would need to keep the dinosaurs and the horses separately.
Probably. The dinosaurs would probably eat the horses otherwise.
Well, even if they wouldn't eat them, the smells would set them off. Horses will spook at everything. I mean, certain herbivores you could keep together with them, but just being reptilian, yeah, that's going to come off weird to them. At least until they can be trained to deal with it.
Yeah.
So which is stupider in 1879? A dinosaur mount or a horse?
Very much depends.
And the best mounts in 1879, I'd reckon, are the living kettles from the Saurid book, which are essentially ginormous sort of armored ankylosaurs, but they're big enough that some of the Saurid build heads on top of them and wander around the plains as little mobile villages on the backs of dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's less a mountain, more a Winnebago.
Oh, you know, they're on its back. It's a living thing. That's a mount. I'm pretty sure it counts. They're cavalry.
Well, I mean, they run by the beast tamers, not necessarily cavalrymen. But yeah, because they'll have an entire like house on the back of the darn thing.
So as you're increasing the magic level, does that mean that the spells are more powerful, or that there's more spells, or both?
Bit of both. Mostly just that it becomes easier to use them. Because right now, you're casting magic, and you're having to take the strain from the spells in order to fuel them. You're using your own life source to power the spells. Whereas by comparison, like with Earthdawn, you weave a thread to the spell pattern, and then you can activate the spell that way. It doesn't require additional strain and effort on your personal part. You don't have to force the magic to go through. Whereas at 1879, the magic level's not that high, so you're kind of hot wiring it. We're still not quite going to be at the level where threads and patterns become a thing. You're not really able to connect to those. But we will be closer to that. You might be able to see some of those things start to emerge. For the particularly powerful practitioners, dragons might start to be able to weave threads, but that would be really hard for the average person. As rare as magic users are, not exactly average, but it would be hard for a lot of them to be able to force that much power through.
Well, and dragons would already know how to do it. They've been.
Well, yes, they have the knowledge, but they also are inherently magical. Just they are partially astral in their existence, so they kind of exist within the magic level. They can force a lot more of that through. Whereas people are not. They're physical in nature, and they're just accessing the powers of the astral.
I think there's a strong argument to suggest that thread weaving is just people trying to imitate what dragons are doing by being dragons.
In a sense.
Who doesn't want to be
But
a
that's
dragon?
a whole level of Earthdawn conspiracy theories.
But yeah, I mean, kind of think of it like electricity. You can get electricity to flow through the air if you force enough power into it. You can make a Tesla coil and it'll shoot lightning, but the air is very resistant, and it is much harder. So as the magic level increases, that resistance lowers, and it becomes much easier to get a spark. Not to mention, you're able to enchant things better, and magic can sustain itself a little bit better. For magical items, you might start to see the more existence of like kernels of true elements. You see extra magic getting put into critters and creatures. You'll see more people becoming boojums. As with Andy's campaign, you'll see more awakened parrots.
Oh God, it's the awakened parents.
I do have a write-up for those for the creatures book.
Wait till you go to the Americas and you have to deal with cockatrices, which are actually giant terror birds, because terror birds were a thing. And they are probably the scariest thing in the world. 10-foot bird that can bite your head off.
Oh, if you think that's
they're
bad,
not
wait until you go to the
that
grub
long
and feel the
ago.
Horok. A Horok is a bird big enough where it could go down and pluck cattle as a snack. That's actually the picture that Don drew. It's basically just flying off, holding a cow in the claw.
So birds are evil and scary as a whole. They're evil and scary.
It's true.
The only thing worse than birds are dolphins. I'm just saying.
I have less of a problem with birds than I do with cats.
See, cats I understand. They're egotistical bastards. I got that. But dolphins and a lot of birds, especially aquatic birds, in fact, most things associated with water are evil. Just saying.
Well,
So
there's a lot of stuff in the water in the Grove that is not very nice, mainly because of the aquatic saurids.
Out of curiosity, what's the coolest water stuff? Because I know that a lot of books, a lot of games don't give that a lot of attention. And I was pretty sure that you had, especially in the Grove. So what's the scary things in the water?
It's not explored as much as an environment, specifically because the aquatic saurids are so hostile, and they are very much will kill you on sight, especially if you come into their territory.
There's the cataphract lobster.
Yes, I was they use a lot of living materials. So yeah, the cataphract lobster, which is basically just a giant lobster mount that they can run through the water and ride onto land.
Lobster is APC, basically. I think is the simplest way to put it. I think that's what Alex was aiming for.
Basically, yeah. They use a lot of weapons that are actually living creatures. So, like, they have like spear octopi, where it's got kind of a hardened shell that they can chuck at you and use like a harpoon. But the octopus will come alive and like grapple onto you. And of course, it can also propel itself through the water after they throw it.
So now aquatic saurids still have to come up for air, right?
No, well, depending. The river saurids, yes, they will still, the freshwaters, they will still come up and breathe actual air. They can just hold their breath for a really, really, really long time. The saltwater aquatics, they actually have gills, and they can stay underwater indefinitely.
And we hope they do.
Yeah, it's kind of a problem when they don't.
Well, I was going to say, if they
'Cause
have
they'll come
gills,
up to
don't
do
they have
raids.
to? Because things with gills
it's
have
an interesting
to.
one, and not everybody's quite sure how they do it, but they are able to come up on land and do raids because they attack anytime the British try to put a boat bigger than just a simple rope into the water, they will come up and trash it, and they can only survive on land for a certain amount of time. No one's been able to capture an aquatic because after a certain length of time, they basically melt.
I'm
They
sorry,
just
try that
turn
again.
into a
They
puddle
melt?
of. Yes, they kind of turn into a puddle of bloody, goopy, biological, soupy mess.
Ew, why?
They will. We talk about it more in the Sword Source book. They have a potion that they will drink that will allow them to sustain themselves on the water or out of the water, but it burns up their life force a bit. And the idea being, and they do this intentionally so that they cannot be captured. They do not want to be taken from their home and be captured. So they have an antidote that they will take when they come back.
Wait, but if they're a pile of goo, how are they coming back?
That is the point.
Yeah, if they get captured, they don't get to go back and take the antidote.
Yeah, they get captured or if they get captured or killed, then yeah, they just disintegrate.
A lot of the saurid who are coming onto land are essentially being sent as berserkers.
Basically. Which also makes them really fiercely powerful because they're not only for the psychological aspects. If I don't kill you and go back home, I'm going to die, regardless. There's just the magical effects of the potion, that they're essentially burning up their life force to be able to come out and kill you.
Well, I mean, that's commitment.
I've said it before that Alex, who wrote most of the Aquatic Swords, is if you let him off his chain, he's a complete maniac.
And I am all for it.
And he's really fun stuff with that. So, almost all the appearances of the aquatics in Shifting Tides, and boy, do they appear, is his work.
So,
they're insane. Yeah.
So let me get this straight. You do not want Jurassic Park in London. What you want is aquatic saurids trying to eat your souls.
Well, in character, you wouldn't want that, but that's what's happening.
Yes, but as a GM, that sounds like what I'm hearing. GMs hear things funny. I just want you to know that. It's the whole thing.
I can promise you in Shifting Tides, as well as some stuff, there is some fun with sword. There's lots of fun with sword in there.
That is, Shifting Tides take place all over in the Grove?
So there's an introduction that starts in London, and kind of sets the tone, and then it takes place going over into the Grove. You'll do some missions on the British side. There are a couple of missions from the Sunset side, and then there are something kind of back and forth. And I hear Ross dragging out the archives.
Yeah, I've now muted Ross. I'll unmute him in 5 minutes. It's fine. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of really fun, cool stuff for people to easily take out and play with.
Oh yeah, we have made a lot of goodies over the past couple of years with all the different books to throw in here.
Yep.
And now we're going to be over to swinging the pendulum over to Earth, and we're going to do it all again.
I love it. And to figure out how I'm getting you into the Grove so I can attack you with aquatic saurids. We'll work on this.
Well, there's also Fae in the Grove, and you actually have to go through their territory to get to it. There are Fae among the cultures of, because the Fae are present everywhere. They are astral beings, so anywhere there's astral space, they exist. But they will attach themselves differently to different cultures.
So in the Grove, are they more like everybody knows about them and they have their own space? Or is it more hidden?
Well, they'll have their own type of creatures and things that they bond to based off of the culture. Joel wrote one where it's basically a thing from the Addams Family. They have spirits that are basically just disembodied hands that will come walking around.
And they like to help.
So you get a bunch of them and a sword, and you make a guillotine. I had a player do that with mage hands, so that would work for this too.
They like to get annoyed. Basically they are. I'll admit that an awful lot of the sword ones are sword book. There is Write Up for the Sword Fae and there is Write Up for the Samsut Fae in both books, and particularly the Samsut Fae make an awful lot of appearances throughout Shifting Tides, is just because there wasn't enough chaos in that book.
So, what happens if a Samsut or Sword Fae decides to cross over into London?
Well, they wouldn't have the same type of. The whole point is they're bonding to the cultural identities and stories and legends of whatever culture is most prevalent in the area they're going to. So, unless there was a sword population that moved over on the Earth side, they wouldn't really have that culture behind them to be able to bond to it.
So they can't just visit?
But they could manifest as other creatures. It would just be
Yeah,
Earth Fae story creatures.
certainly the implication has had is that a lot for the lower in the Fae, they essentially take on a form that is determined by the culture in the area they are manifesting.
Mhm.
So, the crawling claws are essentially the sordid interpretation of brownies and fulfill the
Basically.
similar roles. So, if you were to capture one and drag it into Fort Alice, it would turn into a small 6 inch tall, now probably very annoyed brownie. The higher levels of Fae, well, the rules are the rules are different for them.
They just kind of get to make up their own rules. They just kind of do whatever they want.
That seems normal.
I
For
have mentioned
Fae.
before, for the high level Fae, I am very much basing a lot of how they function off of Q from Star Trek, where they just kind of snap their fingers and make things happen.
That seems accurate, though. I can see that. All right, gentlemen, you are coming up on 5 minutes till. Is there any questions before we let Brad and Joel run away and unmute Ross? All right. Well, with that, thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Joel. And
Thank you. And anytime anybody has other questions or anything they want to put in, if you're on Discord, from the 1879 channel, I watch that regularly. I will respond to things as soon as I'm able outside of the day job. And of course, everybody enjoy the rest of the convention. I'll still be around. We got more events to do.
All weekend. All right. Goodbye. I'm stopping the
guys.
stream.